Hey Leslie, Gary here. This is Art 131. Here's the schedule that you were working on. Several of these. You probably end up here right about here in week 3. Well, it's week 4, week 5 now gone by. So that's number 7, number 8, number 9, and 10 are landscape. Midterm presentation is a grade on its own. The landscape is worth 2 grades because I want it to be epic. I want it to be a lot, not just a little. So you can go outside to visit landscape or go to a favorite place you like and try to draw what you see. Of course, you're going to have the lights and darks, the shadow areas, the lit up areas from the sun, single light source being the sun, and all the nuance of everything. So on branches and trunks of trees and anything else is going to be a shadow area, shadow side and light side from where the sun is hitting on it and where the sun isn't hitting on it. And this could be a gradual transition when things are round, like trunks of trees and branches, or anything that has a rounded shape to it. It's going to be a gradual transition from the light tones to the darker tones. So there's a mid-tone in there when you're shading. It doesn't all of a sudden get dark. It's a gradual change of levels of tone from the very lightest to the very darkest as you go around something round, like a tree trunk, limbs of trees, branches, anything else that is in your landscape, rocks or whatever. It all has a light and dark side to them, usually. Something that has a sharp edge like a building would be light on one side and then dark on the other, darker anyway. So notice that when you're looking at landscape. It's best to go out and do some landscape drawing rather than working off of an image on Bing, but that can be done too if you pay attention to what you're drawing from and what all the lights and darks are. It's really what makes any drawing strong is to have levels of tone, at least 7 levels of tone, from light to dark and all the mid-tones in there. Yeah, that's what you need to focus in on. And just draw what you see proportion-wise. Measure it out with your pencil, like, okay, how tall is this tree versus this tree and this thing or that thing? Measure them out together and try to match up what's going on. So that's landscape. I'll show you some images anyway, but you should work off something outside. The profile, I'll show you some profile and also show you the map shapes. I call it map shapes. It's really mapping shapes of shadows. It's, again, mapping out with your shading the lights and darks in a subject. So let's go to the profile first. Go to Bing, profile drawings, go to Google, profile drawings, you see profile, it's the side of the face, one side or the other. Okay, what you want to notice is that some of these have more shading than others. Of course, the shading is more strong drawing. Cartoon faces like this aren't going to work. Big eyes and stuff like that, that's not going to work. That's not realistic. I'm teaching more realistic at this point anyway, until we get to something else later. But a lot of shading in the face. You're going to see lights and darks. You maybe want to do your own face and have somebody take a profile picture of it with a single light source, maybe straight on or from the sides or something, not actually on the side of the face, maybe the front of the face, like this one. This one has very little shading, so it's not all that strong of a drawing. This one has some shading, and so it's okay. This is scratchy shading. It looks like very scratchy texture, which I don't prefer, but it is kind of artistic to do it that way. I prefer the more smoother tones when you're doing that. But like this one's a pretty good one for tone quality. All skin has a tone. No skin is white as paper. So don't send something to me that has any white skin. I mean, these are nice drawings, but they're not accurate. Nobody has skin that white. So even this one has a slight tone to the skin, except for right where maybe the brightest areas are, but the most of the other area has some tone in it where you're shadowing out. Some of these are more strong than the others because they have more shading on the face. The whole face here has a tone, as opposed to not having a tone at all, which is pretty much horrible. So, this guy has a lot, except for very few places where the light is really shining off the skin. And then you have all this other contrast with all these other lighter and darker areas. But they get light, dark, light. They go back and forth with the curvature of the face. So as this brow goes around, you have the lighter area here. I'll provide a video that you can watch on this as well. But just notice that here. Notice it in your drawing. Notice also that the eyes are about in the middle of the head. They're not way up here, certainly not way down here. They're about in the middle of the head, and then you have the bridge of the nose that comes off from the eye. It's not right on where the eye is, because you have this bridge of the nose area. And another thing you want to notice, typically this guy's ears are kind of high, but typically the top of the ear is about where the top of the eye is, and the bottom of the ear is about where the mouth and nose start. So you want to sort of notice that in everything you're drawing, or looking at. The top of the ear about where the eye is, bottom of the ear about where the mouth and nose are. Eyes are about in the middle of the head. More than not, they are. So there's a lot of room up here. Whatever students do is they crop this thing like this. They make it this little tiny head up here, and they crop out the brow, when it's really way the heck up here is your brow. Take a photo of yourself sideways or somebody else that you want to draw, and notice that. Nobody has this cropped off head. And students send that to me. They crop it right here, like, no, there's this big brow here. There's a big cranium up here, big round cranium that comes down. And then you got the jaw coming off of the ear. So it's off the ear that jaw starts. And then the neck. And don't make the neck too thin or too thick. So really notice what you're drawing from. Okay, I'll send a video. Look for the profile video with this. I'm going to move on to the other shapes now. And here's the what I call map shapes and shadows. God darn it. Anyway, that was a good one. And again, we're working with a single light source, a coat or some garment, hoodie over a chair. Draw the chair, draw the garment, but look at all the dark and light areas from where the garment folds, where there's crevices and turns and dips, and places where the light isn't catching and places where the light is catching. You want to get all of that. It's just the same as the crumpled paper. Same as the other things we've been doing. You're shading in the light and dark areas, okay? So you want to make sure you know where those are. Look for them. Put in the darkest area. Put in the lightest area by putting nothing or erasing out tone that you put in, and then work on all the middle ground areas. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. Dark, but not as dark as that. 6. There's 6 or 7 levels of tone in what you're drawing. So find them, and that will make the shape happen in these chair drawings. Chair with the garment. Same with this. The chair's kind of light because it's probably light wood. You're going to have a cast shadow on the ground, maybe too. Look at the legs. Since you're up above this chair and looking at the seat, the leg ends here, but the front one is the same distance, so it ends down here. Let's say that's a foot or a foot and a half. The back one's the foot and a half too, but it starts way up here because you're looking at it in a different perspective. So that's where this ends up too. A lot of big mistakes students make is they make these front legs really short to match the back one right here. But that isn't accurate. If you put that on the ground, you'd be falling off the chair. What's accurate is all the legs are the same size. Like that's a foot and a half, foot and a half. This one's a foot and a half, but it starts way up here and goes there. Starts way up here and goes there. It depends on where you're looking at the chair. If you got on the ground as you were looking at this, then it would look totally different. But since you're standing up looking down at the chair, these legs are in front of those appearing, but they're really flat on the surface of the ground, which is now tilted from you because you're standing up. So look at and notice everything you're drawing from. Measure those legs, and you'll find out. I mean, measure with your pencil. Hold it up to your pencil. These are not going to be any shorter than those. These are not going to be shorter than those. They're going to be the down here because you're looking down at the chair. But look at all the lights and darks in this jacket. Lights and darks everywhere, showing the folds, showing the dips and turns. And it's shading, and there's a little detail possibly drawn in on there. Okay? I had another one to show, and I don't know where it went. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. Might have been this one. Yeah. Okay, so look at all these. And the chair is really nice. It has some lines in it to show the carving in the wood. You don't have to do that if you don't have one. But set it up with a single light source coming in the window or a lamp, but not multiple light sources. And then all the dark areas will show up better. And the light areas will show up better too as separate pieces. But sometimes it's gradual transition because all these dips and turns are kind of rounded like this. They're not sharp. So there's a mid-tone right down in here. Mid-tone right there before it turns light. Dark, mid-tone, light. You know, dark, mid-tone, light. Even if it's a little bit, it does do that. And the mid-tones here, light and dark. And this is a mid-tone. But it's shaded with the garment, the flow of the garment. So they're shading it down and up and down like this and around. They're shading with that, you know, don't just go all the way across like because that's not going to work. You want to shade with the direction of your subject, with the garment shape. You're shading down here. You may have to turn the pencil or turn the paper. You shade with the side of the pencil like I've taught you and like you saw in videos. All right, so that's that. And there was no homework in week 5, but week 4 was draw your own eyes. That's a whole other thing. That's why we want to keep up on this stuff, because there, you know, the one goes by and then boom, you're into another one. So I have to put 2 eyes because it thinks I want 1. So different. I'll give you an eye drawing one too, but there's no line on the nose. These are shading marks. There's no line. Boop boop. Don't do that. Shade it in. There's no line on any of these in the bridge of the nose. You don't have to draw the whole nose, just the bridge. What you'll notice is the iris meets the bottom lid mostly, or maybe is slightly covered up, but the top of the iris is covered up more by the top lid. And then you have all these reflection marks in the eyes. And they show it's glassy. And then you have the white that's not totally white all over. It's kind of shaded in the corners and under the lid. It's kind of shaded a little so that you, it shows that it's round when you do that. Here's a really big shaded one. You go on here and look at these, but take a picture of your eyes or look in a mirror and then draw from a mirror image. But there's shaded parts to the actual eyeball from the top lid and in the corners. You notice in the corners, kind of darker. That's going to make the eyeball look round. And then you have all this reflection mark from light source. You'll see that too. And so you erase out or don't put tone there. Certainly don't put a border line around it. There's no border line. It's just white, light and dark areas that meet up with each other, okay? All this is shading. There's no lines in it. Up here, yes, to those hairs on the eyebrow, there's some lines, okay? I'll give you that. But mostly there's no lines. So study these, study yours. You'll see that the iris has different shapes in it and different color spots. It goes around and around, and then you have that reflection mark. Mostly eyes, anybody with color in their eyes has various different shades in there and little bits and specks and stuff. Then you get the shape of the eye correct. It's not one big oval, or it's not like an egg shape or something. It's more like an almond, but you have this part here that comes out and has a little skin in there. And it comes to a point in the back side. So it's not like a round oval or something like that. Don't draw it like that. You really look at your eye and notice that it tips back into a point here, and there's like skin part right there. And then where are the eyelashes going? How many do you have, Just kind of draw them in sporadically. This is probably pretty realistic because they're not all perfectly matched out like if you have mascara on or something like that. Or fake eyelashes or something. This is more perfect, but they're still not perfect. So I want you to notice everything about your eyes in a mirror and draw it. No lines in the middle of the nose. This is shading. Light, dark, light, dark, light. And then you have the brow that's kind of darker in there too. All this has shading right in here. And the middle of the brow is a little brighter because it's catching the light. But the corners and maybe up above here on the eyeball, the white part, kind of shaded. And don't forget the reflection mark. All right, so I'll leave it at that. Look at the other videos about how to draw a profile and eyes, and we'll talk with you when you get here. Or send me some work to look at. Don't forget your midterm.